During the long, punishing winters of northern Europe, warmth wasn't comfort, it was the dividing line between life and death. The Vikings understood this better than anyone. For months at a time their world became a frozen expanse of wind, ice, and darkness, yet their longhouses stayed warm, dry, and surprisingly stable in temperature. Their secret wasn't endless firewood or oversized hearths, it was a heating system so clever, so efficient, and so far ahead of its time that modern engineers still study it today, a passive earth and stone thermal heating network that worked like a giant battery buried beneath their floors. It absorbed heat slowly, locked it in, and released it gradually for hours or even days at a time. This method resurfaced centuries later during World War II when fuel shortages and brutal Arctic front conditions forced soldiers, resistance camps, and even civilians to rediscover Viking ingenuity. But after the war, some governments restricted the construction of these subterranean systems because, when built improperly, they became dangerously effective, producing invisible gases, underground fires, or intense radiant heat that inexperienced users couldn't control. Behind that irony rests a bigger truth. The Vikings had mastered thermal engineering long before the word engineering even existed. Inside a Viking longhouse, the central hearth wasn't the main source of warmth. That role belonged to the stones surrounding it and the earth beneath it. Large stones were heated slowly by the fire, absorbing energy deep into their dense cores. Once the flames died down, the stones continued to radiate a smooth, gentle heat through the night, keeping the interior warm even in sub-zero temperatures. This radiant heating was far more efficient than open flames, which lose enormous energy through convection. Viking stones acted like slow-release heat capsules. The floor, which was made of packed earth, sand, or clay, created a thick insulating layer that trapped warmth, stabilized humidity, prevented mold, and even helped preserve food stored close to the ground. The result was an environment far more livable than the freezing world outside. Families slept above warm floors, clothing dried quickly, smoke was reduced, and a fire didn't need to run constantly, saving precious resources. Fast forward nearly 1,000 years. In World War II, the same northern territories, Norway, Finland, northern Russia, and parts of Sweden, once again faced winters capable of killing exposed men in just minutes. Armies found themselves stranded, undersupplied, or cut off entirely, forced to improvise heat using whatever local knowledge they could find. And so, the Viking thermal principle resurfaced, this time in the hands of soldiers instead of farmers. Troops built what came to be known as thermal pits, shallow trenches or underground chambers filled with heavy stones. They would build a compact fire on top of the stones, allow the heat to soak into them for hours, then seal the pit with soil, metal plates, or even wooden slats covered with snow. Once sealed, the pit functioned exactly like a Viking thermal mass bed. It radiated steady dry heat upward into tents, snow shelters, or bunkers without producing open flames or visible smoke, an enormous advantage when enemy aircraft or patrols could detect any chimney plume. Soldiers used these hidden heaters to dry socks, warm food, keep weapons thawed, and maintain temperatures inside shelters that would otherwise freeze solid. Units on the Arctic front reported that thermal pits could hold usable heat for 8 to 12 hours, even in storms. After the war, civilians, especially in rural Scandinavia, began adapting the same concept to barns, root cellars, storage buildings, and workshops. But unlike the Vikings, many lacked the experience to build these systems safely. Poor airflow and improper sealing sometimes trapped dangerous gases underground, and in rare cases, overly hot stones ignited buried organic matter or timber supports. Several Scandinavian governments issued building restrictions not because the technology was ineffective, but because it was just too effective when built incorrectly. The system produced so much sustained heat, with so little ongoing supervision, that it became a hazard in the wrong hands. What makes stone and earth so powerful is their thermal mass. Dense materials absorb heat slowly but hold on to it long after the heat source is gone. This creates a lag effect. Energy enters quickly but exits in an even, extended release. Open flames are inefficient by comparison. They spike temperature rapidly and dissipate nearly all their energy into the air, where it escapes. A stone bed wastes almost nothing. It doesn't smoke, doesn't flicker, doesn't burn fuel continuously, and it really doesn't lose heat the way a traditional fire does. It simply stores warmth and returns it as needed. Today, modern masonry heaters, rocket mass stoves, and passive solar homes rely on the same principle. The Viking method used local stone and clay instead of concrete and ceramic, but the science is identical. Anyone exploring off-grid heating can safely recreate this ancient technique using modern materials. A stone-based thermal battery can be built beneath a cabin floor, inside a greenhouse bed, or even in a backyard survival shelter. Dense, non-porous stones, granite, basalt, or sandstone, are heated by a controlled fire, then sealed beneath a thick insulating layer. Once heated, the stones radiate warmth for hours, stabilizing temperature without electricity. Modern versions channel heated air or exhaust through a stone mass, expanding the Viking concept with contemporary safety improvements. What's striking is not that the method still works, but that nearly every improvement since has simply refined what the Vikings already understood. They built a system that outperformed its era, resurfaced in wartime, was restricted after peace returned, and today stands as a testament to how much ancient people knew about energy management. Their brilliance wasn't in complicated devices or machinery, it was in understanding the behavior of stone, earth, and fire. And in a world increasingly interested in sustainability, their old ideas feel brand new again.